Welcome to Winging It, a show by Oddbird about web design development and our approach to solving problems. On today's show, Miriam and I are going to discuss the surprising effects of CSS shorthands. Miriam, how are you? Oh my goodness, let's start over. Too bad this is live. Miriam, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm all right. How are you, Stacy?
I think I need a drink of water or something.
Yeah.
I did.
That's
before we get started, I was going to mention that my name is Stacy Cavermo. No P's in my name. Miriam, how many P's do you have in your name?
I think probably at least 5.
I think Google might say 5. I don't know. I saw what I'm talking about is, I think, from Jake Archibald. I don't know if something started before that one, but if you type how many P's are in your name in the Google search bar, it might give you a surprising amount of P's in your name.
And different answers every time, which is also fun.
That is fun. I'll have to try that with the kids later to see how many P's they have in their names. All right, but we're not here for that today. We are here for shorthands, CSS shorthands, which are both amazing and powerful. And let's get into their surprising effects, shall we?
Yeah. Should I go straight in? So this is some material that is sort of a side quest that came out of working on my course. The course is, I think we'll have early bird seats available soon, hopefully very soon. Early Oddbird. Yeah, and this is sort of bonus material, and we thought might make an interesting little stream. But I'll share my screen here.
So a sneak peek of the types of material, maybe some of the teaching style that you might see in the course when everyone pre-orders it. Hopefully.
Yeah.
All right. Should I add to stage? Are we ready?
Yeah, I think we're ready to go.
Excellent.
I should maybe have a clicker here, just so I'm not looking for my keyboard as I go. So most CSS properties, like say background color, for example, will apply directly to any element on the page, right? And what do we mean by that? So if we look at this, if we set the background to hot pink, for example, we can look here and we'll see, we can go to computed styles, and we'll see all of the properties that are applied to the page.
Can you command plus on that?
Oh, I can.
Inspector, please.
Good call.
Thank you.
Right. So all of the browsers have some way of looking at the computed styles and some way of showing all of them, or just the ones that are set explicitly. Either way, when we look here for background, we'll see a lot of different background properties, but none of them are just the background property, right? But we are setting background. I might not be on the right. I want to be on the canvas there. And then I'm setting the background to hot pink. Great. So we can find here that there is a background property, but there is no background computed style because it's not actually the property of an element. It's something a little bit different. It's a shorthand. So there is a background property in CSS. It's the shorthand, and it's often simpler. The shorthands are some simpler way of setting a lot of longhands at once. So any value that we set on the background shorthand, hot pink, for example, will be removed and replace and expand to define this whole range of background related properties, not just the deep pink background color that we were explicit about, but actually every single background property that is part of the shorthand. So we're setting the background image, the background size, the background position, and so on just by setting background to deep pink. So that's the first thing to understand about background or about shorthands, is that they will always expand to set all of the subproperties that are involved in that shorthand. Any property that we didn't explicitly set will be reset to some initial value, whether or not we said anything about it. So sometimes shorthands will even reset properties that we can't set directly in the shorthand. So for example, here, if we say border thin solid teal, we are setting the border top width, the border top style, the border top color. We're also setting border image, which is reset only. There's no way to set the border image in the shorthand, but it does get reset by the shorthand. Border image itself is also a shorthand, so then that expands out even more, and we get the border image source, the border image slice, the border image width, and so on and so on. So when we set border, we are setting, I haven't counted here, but I'm just going to guess it's like in the 50s or something, because it's every side and every aspect of every border. All of that every time we use the border shorthand. There's a lot going on behind shorthands. So that might feel risky if we're just trying to make like little adjustments and we don't want to override everything. But it's also extremely useful if we do want a fresh start. Shorthands are there to sort of start over and wipe away everything else and ensure that if this property applies, it applies cleanly. It applies as a fresh start. It's not combined with something else that was already there. So this sort of works to determine what level we should use. I'm going to go to this demo here. So when we're thinking, do I want to use the longhand or the shorthand, we have to think about, well, what is it that we're trying to do? Am I trying to make slight changes to what's already there? Then I might want to be very specific about like border block end style and just change that. And I'm only changing one thing. I'm not changing the width. I'm not changing the color. I'm not changing any of the other sides. I'm being very explicit about what I'm trying to do. Border block end. This is the same thing, but a little bit more shorthanded. So border block end, I'm setting the style and the width and the image, everything to do with the border block end. Or I could go a little farther and set it on all sides. Or I could go the whole way and start over, which is going to override also the color, also the, I'm only setting a style, but it'll override the color and the width as well, right? So when I'm creating a new border, I want to think, well, am I trying to create something new from scratch, or am I trying to adjust what's already there? And that's the basics for how I choose one or the other when I'm wondering if I should shorthand or longhand. All of this happens before the cascade. So this is in the first step of the value resolution process, what we call filtering, which is where we're finding all of the relevant stuff to apply. Because in CSS, every element has all these properties, right? And all that we're doing is setting those properties. It's almost like a config file, like every element has its config, and we get to come in and set the config, and then the browser has to figure out how to apply that config, how to render a page based on the config that gets set. And so these first three steps, filtering, cascading, and defaulting, ensure that we have a complete config file for every property on every element. And then the final three steps are the browser figuring out how do we apply that? Resolving, formatting, and constraining, applying our configuration. Filtering is sort of finding everything that's relevant. Like we go out and we say, okay, for this element, what styles have been defined, what's out there, what applies. And this is the stage at which we're looking at like a button and we're looking at its background, and we have to go find its background image and its background image position and its et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that happens with normal properties. We then cascade. So we've done the filtering, then we're cascading. With normal properties, we'll only get a conflict in the cascade when we've set the same property multiple times. So in this case, the display is set twice. So there will be a conflict there, and display flex will win because it comes later. They're the same specificity, they're the same origin, they're the same scope, et cetera, et cetera. But the cascade will find us a winner. But the color property here is only set once. No competition, it wins the cascade. But shorthand properties are a little bit different. They don't just conflict with each other with declarations of the same shorthand. We don't only have a conflict here between border and border. We have a conflict with all three after they're expanded. So first they expand in place. So each of those longhands becomes all of the other way around. Each of those shorthands becomes all of the longhand, setting all of the relevant subproperties. And then each of those will cascade. So now we find a winner between our border top styles and our border top widths and our border top colors, right? So that means the shorthand here will override any previous longhands. It's gonna win the cascade across the board, even though it's a separate property in CSS. Is that making sense?
It makes sense. And it is so much more like potentially dangerous than I've ever really thought shorthands to be, or also beneficial if you are trying to override everything and reset it.
Right. Yeah, that's why I think about it that way, instead of like what's going to, I don't know, just give me the result I want or something in the immediate. It's sort of like, how are they going to interact? Am I trying to start over? Do I want this to apply as a new thing, or not apply as a new thing? So it can be useful sometimes to combine them, because sometimes we want to start over and then make little adjustments. So this can be really helpful sometime, but we have to be careful about the order that we do it. So we can say, okay, I can't use a border image. I can't set border image in the shorthand, but I can use the shorthand to get myself the basics that I'm looking for, that thick, solid border. So I'll just get that in place, even though there's no border image yet. And maybe I could even say, let's pick one of the colors so that we have that works on its own, but then we're going to add a border image to make it a little bit more interesting. So it can be useful to start over and then make adjustments after the fact. We just, when we do that, need to be careful that the adjustments come after the starting over, right? Because that shorthand gives us a clean slate. So I find this a really useful pattern, and I use it quite a bit. Always just making sure that the shorthand comes first, gives me a clean slate, and then I can add to it from there. So part of how I'm thinking about that is, how should this cascade with other borders? If there's borders set in other places in the style sheet, do I want to merge with them in some subtle way? Do I want to set one little bit of something and combine with other properties, or other styles? So for example, if I'm styling a button, and there might be different button states out there, but I'm setting the default. do I want this to combine with other states, or do I want it to, or like I'm setting one of this, I'm setting hover, but there's also a active or aria toggled. What is that word I'm looking? Aria pressed. That's the one. There's going to be multiple of these states. Do I want the state that I'm working on to override other states, or do I want it to combine with other states? If I want to override other states in the cascade, or like either mine will win or lose, then I'll use a shorthand. But if I want sort of a more subtle interaction, a more subtle combination of states, then I'll use a longhand for that. So that's how I'm thinking about it when I want to use, when I'm deciding to use a shorthand or a longhand. Am I starting over, or am I adjusting details? It's not just about which one feels more readable to me in the moment. There are good reasons to sometimes set background to a color, and there are good reasons to other times set background color. But those have sort of a different purpose to them, even if they are sort of on the surface level doing the same thing. So just quickly showing that. Here, we've got a gradient. This background exists. If I wanted to just change the color and leave the gradient in place, I can do that. That's sort of like, now these two selectors have this subtle interaction, which can be really powerful. That's a powerful option in CSS. But if I don't want that subtle interaction and I just want one of these to win or the other one to win, now, because they both set the shorthand, whichever one wins the cascade, I get that entire background, right? So I think both of those are really useful things to be able to do, but not something that we always think about, and something that could easily surprise us if we're not thinking about it. Because once again, and this is sort of the basis of the whole course, is that how we write a style in CSS can have a big impact on the outcome. We're always having to think about these sort of multiple interactions, because CSS is trying to solve a difficult problem. And there's a reason we have 6 different ways to center a div, because center is not a simple thing. It's like lots of different ideas that can result in centering, and lots of different ways that centering should behave in different situations. And so we need that level of complexity and nuance to be able to communicate to the browser what it is that we're trying to do. That's what I've got for the initial bit here. Happy to chat more about it.
Yeah, there's certain shorthands I almost never use. Like, I don't think I ever use font shorthand. Do you find
Yeah.
yourself not necessarily on purpose, but like, which shorthands border? Yes, all the time.
Right.
I think people probably use text decoration shorthand a lot.
Background is a common one I would use.
Background, right. Are there ones you almost always use? Border background.
It's making me think that it would make sense for me to use the font shorthand more, but I would mainly only use it on sort of like roots of a thing.
Right.
Yeah, maybe sometimes there's a nested root in some way, but
in all of our setup,
like, yeah, exactly.
files.
But it would make sense to do there, except I'm not even sure if that's true, because there's just with font, there's a lot of nuances that I want to be inheriting or keeping around, or I'm not often starting over with my typography. I'm often making little adjustments.
I also find it like shorthands are a little harder to search sometimes if you're looking like specifically for font weight or whatnot. Like it's not as easily findable. So I tend to use longhand quite often, probably more than I need to. But it is nice that I know exactly what it's doing, even though I didn't really even think about all these other like border image properties that I am completely overlooking when I just said the border.
Yeah, it
Um,
was part of what led me to want to make this little sort of aside bonus material, was that I've seen a lot of people pushing to like never use shorthands or avoid shorthands because they have all these other impacts, and because longhand are more clear and searchable. Um, and it felt to me like that didn't match my mental model of what these are actually for. And so I
yeah.
wanted to capture that and look at like, well, is there some other reason that we should be considering whether the long or the shorthand is right here?
So, like, some seem way more obvious, like margin and padding. It's just because it kind of does the same thing, just with different sides. But
Right.
then you have some like
Mhm.
transition, which is a whole list of properties that might have some effect that you don't maybe think about overriding, especially if it's coming
Yeah.
from somewhere else in some other part that you didn't write or from a library. And then all of a sudden you're like, why isn't that working anymore?
Well, and I think that one is slightly different because transition is a list, but I don't think it's a shorthand.
Oh, it isn't.
Like,
But
there's no longhand versions of it, right? You just have sort of like background image. Like background image, uh, you or no, not background image, but like oh, it is background image. You can set a list of background images and they stack on top of each other, but you can't set each one individually. So there's no
But
longhand
you can do transition
versions there.
property, transition behavior. Are these
Ah,
not
right, right.
all
Oh, yeah, yeah.
and like delay and
Right.
direction or whatever? I
Yeah,
don't know
yeah.
all
And
the
each one of those has a list of its own.
yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Whew. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know CSS. And I'm on a CSS show.
No,
Alright, let
yeah,
me
no,
verify
there's just a
this."
little bit of a confusion there with like list properties are slightly different from shorthands, but that one is both.
Yes. Alright, what about we got a question here, which I think, I don't know if you wanna dive into or not, from Mayanek? Mayank?
Mayank? Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to just read this. This might be too specific, but I'm wondering if you can shed some light on how shorthands interact with CSS variable values. As far as I understand, shorthands normally get parsed into longhands before cascading. But this isn't possible with CSS variables because they can be substituted with anything after the cascade.
Yeah, it looks like there's a good article. I wish I had included this.
Can I add it to the stage?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Um, maybe I'll go back and add this because I think it's a good point. Um, this is an article by Manuel Matuzovic.
Yours
Uh,
looks way different than mine. What is your browser doing to the site?
I didn't go to the link you
Oh,
shared.
you're
I
on the other
clicked
oh,
through
okay. Gotcha. All
because
right.
CSS Tricks had reposted this article.
Oh, it just
Uh,
quoted tweet. Yes.
yes,
Good point.
so I clicked through to the original article here. Um, but yeah, and part of the reason that I didn't dive into um, variables here is because I'm sort of dealing with them separately because they've got a lot of interesting behaviors with a lot of the different steps of that value resolution process, filtering and cascading and so on. But this is a really good. What happens is, so we talked about certain things happen at the filtering step and at the cascading step and so on. The problem is that variables don't swap in until late in the process. So at the point where variables have been swapped into place, um, I think that's right before, let's see, it's filtering, cascading, defaulting. And then I think it's at the resolve, right before the resolving stage that variables would get swapped in. And at that point, the cascade's already happened. So we have this problem where if we put a variable in a shorthand, it has no way to know which longhands are being defined when we get to the cascade. So it can't expand early. It can't cascade with the other properties the way we would expect. So it has a little bit of a special behavior. So if we've got an invalid, here's what I think. I haven't read this article in a while, but what I would expect to happen, because we have this invalid computed value time behavior for custom properties, which means we get there at the end, we swap in the value of the variable, and we find out it was invalid all along. We were supposed to filter it out earlier. Earlier, we filtered out anything that was obviously invalid. So if we set the color to Stacy, and Stacy isn't a
Great color.
it is a great color.
It's a great non-color.
But we set the color to Stacy. Normally, the browser would throw that out before the cascade and just say that's not a color that we recognize. We don't need to pay attention to it, so we'll pick a different color in the cascade as the winner. But if we use the variable Stacy and we don't know what's inside of it, and it turns out to be 2.5 M's and not a color at all, then we've already finished the cascade. It's won the cascade. The cascade says that the color should be dash dash Stacy, and that's 2.5 M's, and that's meaningless. And so we get this invalid computed value time behavior, which is this late resolving variable behavior, where suddenly we override everything with initial values for just absolutely everything. So Manuel's point is that if we do that and we get this invalid behavior in a shorthand, we're going to override and get the initial values on every single property. I think that's the idea here. And I think it's a good risk to understand. I would say maybe there's still reasons to think of it in terms of, well, if we're trying to start over, maybe it's the right behavior, but I don't know. It would maybe take some testing. We could live code and play with it, but yeah.
What are we waiting for? Let's do it.
What are we waiting for?
Yeah, let's wing it.
Let's wing it. Okay, pen. Oh, not that. I can't type. Pen.new. One of my most used links. Okay, so let's give ourselves a button.
You should add that to your Stream Deck. I think I have one. I think URL is one of my buttons.
That's good. Let's just get, instead of zooming in on the page, I'll do a zoom to.
Cool.
On HTML.
Excellent.
Just make that a little bigger. All right.
You know your audience.
Yes. All right. So what do I need here to test this? I need a variable. The variable is going to be a color, maybe. So we can say background is our variable, and see that that's working. All right. And then I suppose we could say, like, maybe there's a background image that's a linear gradient. With like, let's just use some not fully opaque background and then to a transparent. Okay, so we've got this gradient. That's a little muddy. I could use some help with the design here. I don't feel great about it, but okay. So now what happens if this becomes invalid?
Kept the image.
Kept the image.
Background defaults
Yeah.
to initial. Or
It said,
whatever. Oh yeah,
okay.
it's not button. It's
Yeah. Are
background.
there other?
But is button? Does button have a background as a user agent style? Does it have like that gray, that super light gray?
Oh,
So appearance none, maybe. Would that work?
or yeah. Yeah. So is it getting that gray? I guess it is, right? I don't know if that.
I can't tell because of our gradient, and because the default.
You wanna see it without the gradient?
Yeah, maybe. And then maybe inspect to see like what's the background. Like what's the computed value of the background?
Computed value of the background. Background color. Transparent.
Transparent. Yep.
So
okay.
We are, that is resetting the background, and it's also actually setting our, we're getting initial values that are overriding the browser styles.
Yes.
Because we have an invalid variable. But I don't know, am I missing part of what this is about?
And then I think at the end, he mentioned if you have the fallback there, you're safe.
Yeah. Okay.
But is that true? Like, what if, well, yeah, it will go to the, if the variable is declared and it's invalid, will it go back to the back or the fallback? Or does it try to use 30 Ms as the color? Because there is a variable there.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, it will not use our fallback here if the variable is invalid. It will only use that fallback if the variable is
undefined. If we don't have a variable. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that fallback will help you with one case, but not with both cases.
And like, let's say, and for learning purposes, if you had background above it, it's not going to use that because that was already passed by on that filtering. So it's going to say, okay, we're going to go with the cascade. The later value wins there, even though the later value is using the custom property that isn't either defined or that isn't valid. So that won't work if you're trying to create a fallback or a double fallback for this.
Yeah. Yeah, I like our colors here.
I saw that. That's an interesting color.
Yeah, I sort of I get the point of this. There's some interesting interactions here with variables. I'm a little less convinced that there's a simple rule that we can take away from this. It seems like we should understand how these interactions work, and then it's going to influence the decisions that we make. But yeah, I also think about like if I'm defining a variable sort of right there or something, what are the chances it's undefined? They're low.
Yeah.
So the fallback maybe isn't a solution. I don't know. Like there's certain things that are just bugs in our code that we have to watch for and fix. Like we can't plan for every bug. besides looking for bugs and fixing them.
Yeah, I would definitely not think of not using custom properties here, whether it's longhand or shorthand. I would just think if something's not how you expect it to be, there's probably some investigation to do. I'm trying to think.
But the point here would be that, well, what? I mean,
define your variables.
Like
name your
but
variables
also,
so you know what to
yes,
what value,
don't name
how to
them
use, what
variable.
type to use. Yeah.
But I mean, like, if I had some, I don't, or background position, that's just called background position, right? Right, I had some other property there, and that's maybe not the one. I mean, it should really be this one.
Yeah, so then you could easily test and see.
Yeah, I'm overriding it either way, so I'm not sure that there's, like, the important thing to understand here is that background overrides background image. And if background isn't valid, it's still going to override background image. I don't know. I guess the question would be, like, if this also has some other part to it. I'm not sure to live code that right away, but
yeah. So use shorthands later on in your projects if you're confident that you don't want to override something.
Yeah,
maybe,
or if I'm creating, I mean, I think of it mainly with, like, I'm making states that are going to interact, right? Like, sometimes I'm defining this class and I'm defining this class, and sometimes both of them are going to apply, right? Then I'm deciding when both classes apply, do I want one winner or do I want some interaction? If I want one winner, then I can use the shorthand to ensure that whichever one wins, it takes over completely. But if I want them to interact subtly, then I should use longhands to make sure that each one is leaving open the possibility of other styles getting added to the mix.
And if you just don't want to write as much as a longhand would be, put those CSS variables when you define that shorthand, like define each thing as a separate CSS custom property. And so later on, if you only, well, yeah, if you're going to change the color, you could just say, instead of saying like border top color, you could just do -- whatever your properly named CSS variable is and have a shorter way to write that, depending on how you name your variables. Those could be very long. So maybe that's not a winner. Now, for the people who care about, like, CSS length and longhands take up more space, like, that's really not a good argument for this, right? I mean, we have things that can compress everything, and
yeah,
it'll be minimal.
CSS, there are ways, if you try to use CSS to, like, crash a browser or something, you can figure it out.
I've never seen it.
But
I mean, that would be a lot of CSS.
Yeah, well, yeah, especially if you're trying to do it on the just through force of lines of code. I remember there used to be some limit in, like, Internet Explorer 6 or something, right? But I don't know, like, yeah, CSS is not likely to be where you're causing your biggest issues.
We have another question here. Tobias asks,
does shorthand resolved?
Go ahead, read it out loud for the people listening.
Yeah, Does a shorthand resolve to longhands directly, or do some shorthands resolve to longer shorthands first? Yeah, there's in some ways no difference between those. So they do, like the way it's written in the spec is that they resolve to longer shorthands, but then those resolve, and all of that resolving happens before anything else happens. So practically, there's no difference between those two things, right? Either way, we get to all of the longhands before we move on to the cascade. But in the spec, you'll find background or border sets the border image, and then border image sets a bunch of other things. So there's a sort of shorthand way of writing what longhands are going to be impacted, but it's going to get to all the longhands before it goes to the cascade.
Cool. I think I could sum this up. What you often say with Poetic CSS is like, write what you mean. If you don't necessarily need to reset everything, write border image as opposed to border. But if you think you need the clean start, then do the shorthand. But otherwise, CSS, very declarative, expressive, write what you mean.
Write what you mean. There's different ways to do different things so that we can be more expressive.
Great.
That's it.
Okay. Is there anything else we should discuss here, or can we head out a bit early today? I think that's 2 in a row.
Great.
Let us know if you all like a shorter winging it. I still would like to try to condense this into 25 minutes. We'll see.
Well, we just have to not talk about it after we show the thing, you know?
Yeah.
There's no conversations, no winging it. None of the winging it in the winging it.
Oh yeah, I guess if we cut it off before the demo, that was probably around there. I think the demo is important. Okay, I'm undecided on that, but so we gave you a little teeny tiny taste of some of the content you might see in the Poetic CSS video course. Miriam, is there anything more we want to say about that? I know we announced pre-sales, early bird.
Yeah, we're going to have our early bird sales soon. The course is really trying to answer questions about how do we organize our CSS? How do we understand the code that we're writing? Even in a world where some people are writing their code with generative LLMs, whatever, the part that it can't do is understanding how CSS works and is organized. And it tends to write more code than you want. So understanding where that can cause problems and how to remove code and how to debug and what is CSS actually doing. So we're not learning every word in the dictionary. We're learning how sentences are structured. Organizing conventions, naming conventions, and how they come out of how the language works.
So well said. So well said. And it won't give you the right amount of P's. So visit oddbird.net/wingingit for any show notes today. There is a course URL, right? There's like a
here it is in the comments. I don't know how to put it on the screen. That's your job.
Well, let's just do that.
There you go.
We'll put that in the show notes as well. oddbird.net/courses/poetic-css. Okay. Let us know what you want to hear on the next Winging It coming up next month. If you'd like to support us, please like and subscribe. And if you want more from Oddbird, be sure to check out our newsletter at oddbird.net/oddnews. Thank you, Miriam, for joining me today.
Thank you.
Remember, best practice is a conversation. So let's keep talking. Bye.
See ya.